Hello there, and welcome to Film Raw here at Bunkazilla UK. It's the place where we digest the latest movie releases across the cinematic spectrum. I'm your host, as always, Iain Boulton, and joining me through the power of internet technology is my cinematic partner in crime. It is, of course, Christian R. Allan.
Hello.
Hello, how are we doing?
I'm very good. With internet technology, I thought it was some kind of obligatory witchcraft that was summoning my image today.
Well, we are in the season of Halloween, so it could be around that way.
I do love the way. Has October always been the season of Halloween? This feels like a recent development amongst sort of the more party-minded friends of ours.
Well, I mean, a lot of cinemas, some of the cinemas that are still open at the moment, they're doing their big Halloween push now. So you can see things like The Shining, Scream.
Never seen The Shining in the big screen.
Yeah. So some cinemas are using the spare spaces they've got now to put out those Halloween films. And yeah, just a lot of stuff seems to be released on Amazon Prime, for example. I mean, they're doing the whole sort of Welcome to Bloomhouse thing at the moment. So a lot of brand new mini horror movies as well as some classics as well available there with the Amazon Prime thing. But yeah, it just seems to be getting more spookier and spookier, I suppose.
All the way until we get to November the 1st, and it's the beginning of Christmas season, obviously.
Well, no, you've got 5 days of fireworks, so that's the period where we talk about V for Vendetta. And and then after the 5th of November, we move on to Christmas.
So it goes Jack Skellington, V, and I don't know, that old guy with the beard from Miracle on 34th Street. Can't remember his name. Santa
Claus or Richard Attenborough. One of the two.
One of the two. I prefer the original.
Okay, fair enough. Anyway. We are going to start this little video with a film or update. We will be talking about Akira 4K very, very shortly, but I think it's something we want to do first. Obviously, we want to talk to you about the current state of the show because we've been trying different things over the last couple of months. So obviously, we've had a few live streams on Twitch, we've had the podcast, and when we feel like we're starting to make steps forward in the cinema world, everything starts going backwards, unfortunately, due to COVID. It's still an issue, and now there is very little cinema releases out there landed in cinema screens. So we've had a chat about what would be the best route forward, and obviously the temporary cinema closures for places like Cineworld, the part-time closures for Odeon and View. So with that in mind, we are returning to our previous formula of looking at various releases across digital platforms, physical releases, and the occasional cinema release, because Akira, which we will be talking about in a few moments' time, has been released in cinemas. So it's kind of business as usual with a slight detour back to Netflix and Amazon. I mean, a couple of the films we've got coming up over the next couple of weeks, we have a few Netflix ones. We've got Trial of Chicago 7 coming up. We've got the remake of Rebecca. Amazon have got Borat 2 as well. So we'll be doing bite-sized reviews weekly. So basically, you'll be able to pick the reviews you want to hear from us. And you can still digest the shows on podcasts. We'll still release these as audio podcasts as well. They'll be on places as usual: Spotify, Apple, and now Amazon Podcasts as well. And what we will do at the end of the month as well is we'll do an audio podcast special called our Cinematic Month, because it's one of our favorite parts of the show. We both enjoy talking about our weekly viewings, but random films. But the sheer scale of how much we talk about the films came into effect when we were kind of editing the Bill and Ted episode, where we may have gone on for about an hour.
It's nice, but we are just skipping through. We could talk about more films. I mean,
yeah,
I end up on average watching about 10 movies a week.
Yeah.
I've had some close friends who listen to this podcast, you're acquainted with as well, Iain, just said like, how do you watch so many movies? And I have to explain that me and my fiance have no life outside of watching films. We don't socialize with anyone else, don't sleep, don't eat, just consume media, only consume media.
Well, we do digest movies here on Film Raw, and that's what we are going to do for the foreseeable future. So
nutritious movies.
End of the month, there will be our Cinematic Month podcast where we will cover any and all films in there. So
what you're trying to say is we'll chat shit.
We'll chat movies, but we'll chat movie shit. So if you like just general happy sprawling conversations about movies, please download our Cinematic Month. It will be a great show. So yes, it's just our way of providing the content you want and giving you all the different ways of how you can digest it as well. So with that in mind, let's move straight on to a review. Before we start on our video review, if you want to be notified about brand new videos from Film Raw and the rest of the Bunkazilla UK team, simply hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It will make the Bunkasaurus very happy indeed. Okay, so for this video, we are talking about Akira. For UK audiences, Manga UK have recently re-released this 1988 cyberpunk tale into cinemas with a brand new 4K print and, for select venues, IMAX formats as well. Directed by Kishiro Otomo and based on the manga he created, Akira tells the story of biker gang leader Kaneda, who tries to help his friend Tetsuro when he starts to develop dangerous psychic powers. With Tetsuro's powers growing, the military keen to experiment with him, and an uprising possibly brewing in the city, there's a very slight possibility that Neo Tokyo is about to explode. So, yeah, I'm using the marketing jargon.
Slight, just slight. It's like
slight. It's on the posters. It's on the manga trailer for it. So for the purposes of this review, we watched the film in IMAX, and I think we have both previously watched Akira beforehand.
I've seen this hundreds of times. I think it's a rites of passage movie for anime fans.
Yeah.
What are we called? Weebs, otaku, one of the two. I can't remember.
Or just common nerds, I suppose. Standard. I'm just thinking of IT crowd. Standard nerds. That sort of way. I mean, this film has been re-released in every format imaginable. It's been out on VHS. It had a very high-profile re-release on DVD. I think late
2001.
Yeah, around 2001. Yeah. Yeah, Pioneer, I believe Pioneer, who were licensing it at the time in America, they spent over several $1 million sort of cleaning up the prints, getting a brand new dub in for the English audiences as well, and seriously pushing this release. And then obviously it's come to Blu-ray as well. So this is like the latest of many, many releases of Akira.
When we'll be reviewing the Laserdisc version?
Well...
Or the Mind hologram in 20 years' time.
Well, first we need to find. We haven't had the 3D version yet. Oh God! So someone's probably thought, "Hey, Akira could come out in 3D." No, don't push it. Don't push it. It's fine. No. It's fine as it is in a nice big cinematic format. So yeah, I think the positives we should get probably the main crux of this re-release out of the way. The presentation on IMAX was brilliant, to be perfectly honest. It was lovely. I think the sound mix is amazing.
Well, I was quite exhausted the day we watched it because it was my first day of my new job. And I sat down and I thought, oh no, I don't want to fall asleep. I've spent 16 quid on this ticket. I don't want to fall asleep. Boom. No.
Yep,
there goes Tokyo. I'm awake. Hello. I do need a powerful sound system in my flat. I just... Yeah, an IMAX studio equivalent. Yes. So yeah, I mean, I think if you know Akira, you know of the story as it is, and obviously we're watching it because we've seen the film before. We are interested in the cyberpunk tale. Visually, it's still quite an incredible achievement of 2D cell animation. It has some really great impactful sequences, like there's this opening bike chase between Kaneda's gang and the clown gang. There's also things like Tetsuro's sort of nightmarish visions. So when he starts to develop these psychic powers after coming into contact with this sort of gifted child, he's starting to see very shocking, very violent, and very disturbing imagery. And that is sort of put across in the animation as well. And yeah, there's great set pieces as well. Military showdowns, the Olympic Stadium finale. It's basically, it is a true testament to what the Japanese animation art form was capable of at the time. And it's a box ticker.
You got your sci-fi, you got your explosions, you got your violence, etc. And without it, a lot of the big anime titles that we have today would probably not have existed.
No, the importance of this film in terms of like Japanese animation cannot be underestimated, mainly for the impact it had in the West. I think it was quite a shock to Western audiences to see a film like this, because there's been adult animation in the West before. They tend to be more like sex comedies, like Fritz the Cat springs to mind, or we could even push it like Yellow Submarine is with the psychedelics, even though that was kind of a family adventure. This is truly this is a adult film.
Absolutely!
Exclamation mark. Some of the themes, even every time I've watched it, and again I've watched it so many times, you'd think I'd be sort of desensitized to the violence, but there are moments where I still find it quite disturbing, especially when Tetsuo's his psychic rage starts, which again, the animation for those sequences are incredible. I mean, in terms of animation quality, the only other animes I can think of that sort of reach these heights are probably, I'd say, the Ghost in the Shell, the original, and maybe a few Ghibli's. Princess Mononoke springs to mind. But yeah, the best thing about watching this in IMAX is on DVD and Blu-ray. I've always appreciated the way in which Neo Tokyo is itself a character, and the way there's far. I can't recall another animated feature, Western or Eastern, that put so much detail into the geography. And it's seeing an IMAX, I was just looking around up and down, just like I hadn't noticed that building before, I hadn't seen that detail. I mean, this is the level of detail is insane for what is often only a few frames of footage you're seeing. But the whole point is that the overpowering has an effect on you. I mean, it just completely draws you in. And it is so nice seeing it on an IMAX screen.
Yeah.
Obviously, it wasn't made for IMAX, but just the sheer scale of the whole, it really truly makes the film feel like an epic. I mean, it already is. I mean, have you seen the manga? Like how big the manga is when you put them all together?
I have the first volume. I haven't had a chance to properly read it. We are going to touch a little bit on the manga because it's one of the possibly the downsides to the film. But we'll get onto that in a little bit. But no, in terms of the manga, I haven't read it.
Oh, the point I was just saying is like that the manga is huge. And to the fact that they made the crazy decision to condense the story into a 2-hour film. I mean, we can talk about it later if you want.
Oh, we can talk about it now, actually, because I was speaking to one of our sort of mutual acquaintances, UK David from Real History UK, Hustlers of Culture, and Binges and Box Sets the other day about it. And basically, I think this was filmed when they didn't necessarily have the final book written.
Yes, and in fact, interestingly enough, Otomo was actually, he had to kind of work out the ending as he was producing the film, and the way the film story developed, because you could kind of see it as a parallel narrative, kind of like the good example, but the Game of Thrones novels versus the television series. They do their own thing. So you have to kind of treat the film slightly separate from the manga, but the film influenced the direction the manga took. So it's quite an interesting symbiotic relationship between the two forms. But yeah, it's my family members who've read the manga and love it, they complain that there's not enough nuclear explosions in the animated version. It's like they're like, Tokyo only gets destroyed twice.
It's needs to be destroyed 5 times.
It's like 5 or 6 in the manga, yeah. How much misery do you want on screen?
This is an anime. This is an anime. Of course, it's going to be miserable at times.
I mean, the problem of condensing the plot to such a short amount of time is it does feel as though you are having to play catch up constantly, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, because I didn't feel as though I was. It's hard to describe. I don't feel watching Akira that I'm working too hard to keep up the story. But it's probably because just with the animation itself, the story is in such a huge scope that I'm just being taken for a ride. And the nice thing I've found over the years is that it's repeatable viewing, because every time I watch it, even last week when I saw it in IMAX, there was something new. Like I was picking up more on the themes of systemic corruption within the sort of the more political aspects, which I hadn't really taken into account when I watched it for the first time as a 15-year-old. Because when I was an adolescent, I was clearly more focused on the sort of more obvious science fiction elements of it. But rewatching it again, delving into the human aspect of the story and the psychology involved, I definitely gained something out of it. However, that being said, I can appreciate why a first-time viewer might be alienated because of all the things I've just said.
Yeah, because the big finale in the Olympic Stadium takes them through a complete roller coaster of what's going on, things are exploding. Where are we? Who are we in? I don't know. What's going on?
I mean, it jumps between two teenagers having a laser battle to the literal tearing of the fabric of reality.
Pretty normal in anime.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, well, Evangelion had to have some sort of influence somewhere.
Well, I mean, the influence of Akira on just the genre is obvious. I mean, if I were to write down the list of my 10 favorite anime that weren't Akira, I'd imagine I could find, that's clearly inspired by that or such and such. But not just anime, but video games as well. And just a lot of modern cyberpunk definitely owes a considerable debt to this film.
Yeah. I think for me, it's kind of like it's a mixed sort of thing for me here. It's like, I like the film. I like revisiting the film when it becomes available on a new format. I think the only downside is it's not necessarily the anime I go to grab off a shelf if I'm trying to bring someone new into the genre. Usually it will be something that is being able to be kind of not translated, but kind of in its original form is still accessible to Western audiences. Something like Cowboy Bebop, for example, because it's self-contained. A lot of the episodes itself are self-contained, or even a Studio Ghibli film, for example. So a lot of Ghibli films are nice and self-contained. And I think what the great strength about Akira is, it showed that animation definitely was not just for kids, because I think a lot of people kind of had to double take because this was a cartoon that was showing biker gangs fighting, buildings being destroyed, people dying, and all that sort of stuff. And I think for a good period of time, apart from very small animated films in the West, basically, if it's animated, it's for kids. It's closed. You did not have a foot in elsewhere really to kind of offer a different form.
Which is strange because science fiction itself lends it to the animated medium. And I associate science fiction with adult content. All my favorite science fiction novels I would not give to a child, with the exception of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But that's slightly not quite the same level as something like Alfred Bester or Arthur C. Clarke, that kind of stuff. It's all like more Eastern science fiction. I mean, it's interesting because in the West we've definitely had an attitude that cartoons are for kids, while in Japan obviously that's not been the case at all.
Yeah,
and I agree. I would hesitate to show Akira as an introduction to. I would probably pick something like Spirited Away. Or another Ghibli, like another Miyazaki, maybe like My Neighbor Totoro or something like that. Akira, I actually, it's a shame. I would have held off and waited for the IMAX, but if I'd known it was going to be re-released. But 6 months ago, I introduced my fiance to Akira for the first time, and she's a big anime fan as well. And I was really nervous. I was playing it cool, when you're showing someone something you really like and you want them to like it as well, but you don't want to do the in their face as they're trying to watch a movie. So I'm just there. But she was completely silent for 90 minutes. And I couldn't read her at all. I had no idea if she liked it. And then when Canada started shooting laser beams at Tetsuo, she just went, yes! Like as loudly as possible. I was like, yep, good. I might show you Ghost in the Shell next. Yeah. not sure she's ready for Ninja Scroll. That's kind of the next one, isn't it? Like,
Ninja Scroll's probably a little extra step in the extreme.
And then you go, that's what stepped to Berserk.
Oh, no.
Or Fist of the North Star.
Yes, exactly. When was the first time you watched Akira? Just out of curiosity.
It was I think it was the manga DVD release. I was about 15, 16. And I recall, I think it's this title. I may be, to quote George W. Bush, misremembering. I remember going to HMV and trying to buy it, and the chap at the counter went, "No, you're clearly too young." So I put it back, and when he wasn't looking, took it to the counter of another member of staff. About 5 minutes later, and they're like, "Whatever." Just like
it's a cartoon. It's for kids. Off you go.
Absolutely. And I remember watching it, thinking, "This is incredible. I have no idea what this is about, but I know I like it."
What was it? I think I watched bits of it for the first time. I can't remember the year it appeared on BBC Two for the first time. It was kind of like a big it was a big deal as well. Like they kind of make, oh, we're going to show this animation that's not for kids. It's going to be on at like 10 p.m. at night on BBC Two. And you're going, ooh. But then I also remember it from the Sci-Fi Channel days, the good days, where every Saturday night was anime introduction. Not anime introduction. It was basically an anime film from whenever. Usually, if it was Akira, you get a nice little intro from Jonathan Clements, and off goes the film. And that was my growing up for most of my teenage years. It's like every Saturday night, me and my brother watching anime. It's like some titles were going, "Oh yeah, this is cool," and other titles were going, "What the bloody hell was that?"
I remember the first time I managed to do it, because I haven't really had cable TV that often. So I had to rely on buying DVDs, which is always a bit of a gamble because I hadn't seen them. Thankfully, most of the manga titles I bought were pretty, spot on, because I did buy Akira and Ghost in the Shower at the same time. I remember the first time I actually got to watch the anime night on Sci-Fi. The film I watched, which put me off their broadcast, was called Riding Bean.
Oh, Riding Bean's good. It's pulpy. It's a pulpy kind of thriller. It's on the same universe as Gunsmith Cats.
I'm not familiar with that title.
I don't believe it had a very limited UK release on DVD. It was an OVA series, and basically some of the supporting characters from Riding Bean made up Gunsmith Cats. But yeah, that's something for if you've imported on DVD or something like that. So it's not wildly known, I guess, in Western audiences, but it's a cultish title.
I just remember not being particularly impressed. I don't. It's not a film. There was Bubblegum Crisis. I think that's the only other one I watched as well. I did enjoy that. I think it's an OVA, isn't it?
Well, there are two versions.
Sorry, should we explain what an OVA is to our audiences who've never watched it?
It's
original
video animation.
That was atrocious. Keep this in. It's very funny.
But yes, let's wrap up our chat on Akira. So I think the basic thing here is, if you're a major fan of Akira or you haven't watched Akira and you're a little bit curious about it, this is the perfect time to go see it at the cinema, especially, and because it looks and sounds great, even after nearly 30 years. Is it 30 years? Yeah. I think it's more than 30 years.
It's 88. 88. So yeah, 32 years, 31 years.
There we go. It looks and sounds great after 30 years.
Like me and you.
Yes. Yeah. So obviously it's at the cinema at the moment, at Select Cinema. So if you feel safe to go and see it, please do. It's highly recommended from both of us. As someone who hasn't read the manga like myself, I like the film. I'm content to watch it every so often. It's usually when a new format's released, and this is no exception. So basically, their love and care has been put into doing this restoration. So it's worth a cinema trip. So in terms of star rating, I think we were chatting just before we went on record here. I think we're looking at 5 stars, aren't we?
Absolutely. This is, yes. I think this is one of the greatest movies, let alone greatest animated movies. This is one of the greatest movies ever made, one of the greatest science fictions ever made. I would just say, if you're slightly squeamish, because this is quite violent, and it's not just the portrayal of violence. There are some very disturbing scenes with a lot of body transformations and things like this. I would say probably best not to go and see it if you're quite squeamish, that kind of thing. However, it is an incredible movie and definitely worth watching. Even if you don't take to it, it's definitely one of the films you need to tick as saying, yeah, I've watched that, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say 5 stars easily. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And going back just to earlier, we were talking about the soundscape as well. The thing about Akira as well is because the animation is so inspiring. It's easy to forget that the soundscape that's created is immense. The score, it's strange. I believe it was actually commissioned before the animation was created, which is very unusual. So they created the score first, then animated, and it's all very strange, organic Japanese sort of percussion, and along with like apocalyptic Bach-esque organs, and it's absolutely incredible. It can be quite overpowering at times, but it's really interesting how that there is an organic aspect to the film, which itself is outwardly quite cold and technological and cybernetically dystopian. So which brings it back down to the human essence of the story. It works on a multifaceted. It works in a multifaceted way, and I like I say, 5 stars. Definitely go and watch it. If you're not going to be freaked out by some of the more disturbing elements, that's my last word on Akira. Bit different to My Neighbor Totoro.
Yeah, quite.
just both very good, but just slightly.
A smidge.
Both 5-star animes, very different.
Well, there you have it, Akira. It is the ultimate big budget anime to see at a cinema.